Hey, welcome in, golfers. And it's the Hot Golf Podcast and Hot Golf Conversation episode, if you can believe it, guys, number 20 of these conversations at our 19th hole last week. Hot Golf, as you know by now, stands for Heart of Texas. That is our focus. The ongoing 19th hole golf chat covering the latest happenings in golf in the 512, about 100 miles in and around Austin, Texas, the heart of golf in the great state. And of course, we talk bigger picture golf. We'll talk LIV Tour, PGA Tour, and what's going on around the world of golf. But that's what we do and around the great state. Show emanates from our home base here in Austin, Texas. I'm your number one T-Box host, Erin Hogan, also the host of Game Time each weekday morning, 6 to 11, actually, on 102.7 ESPN Austin, 102.7ESPNAustin.com. That's where you'll find our podcast on our YouTube page, and we post it up right there at the website. So share it with a friend, 1027ESPN.com. As always, my playing and conversation partners this week, and always an avid golfer more than 50 years, also the CEO and person in charge over at the historic Callahan's General Store in Southeast Austin, nearly 50 years, an Austin legend. He is a staple of Austin golf, playing out of Onion Creek Club. He is our man Charley Wilson. Also, our third member is back from his week in Mexico, or however long he was there. Brings 3 decades or almost 3 decades on the ground knowledge of golf in the Austin scene. As a PGA Club professional, head of golf operations for the City of Austin Golf. He is our man, Steve Hammond. Guys, how are we this week? It's been a rainy, not a lot of golf being played this week, it feels like to me. But, Steve, it sounded like you played in golf in the rain this week, and things didn't go as you had hoped, from the text you sent.
No, I played in some garbage weather yesterday morning. We teed off at 9 o'clock, and we had the pro match play for the Southern Texas PGA. Myself and my partner, Mo Rodriguez, we took a thrashing in the rain from Gilbert Mendez and Sean Mullen. Really happy to report that Gilbert is on his way to play in the Club Professional Championship out in Bandon Dunes this week. It's no small feat to qualify for that. So it's not like we got beat by a couple chumps, but they didn't play great, but we didn't play very well either, and we got closed out pretty quick. But it was a lot of fun it's always fun to compete.
Well, golf is fun, Charlie, but rainy golf is not fun. Rainy, wet golf is that's a challenge for everybody.
Yeah, at some point in time in life, I thought it was kind of fun and challenging to play in rainy golf, because if you're just a little bit good at it and patient, it usually psychs out your opponent. But I'm in a stage now in life where no, it's not fun at all, not one bit whatsoever. So you got to get all your gear. You got to have the gloves that work well on the clubs, and you got to get towels, umbrellas, the right kind of hat that doesn't drip on your ears or your nose. It's just, it's good golf merchandise, stuff, but nonetheless, rainy golf, pass.
Pass, yeah. Well, I'm with you on that, because as I've always said, in the state of Texas, there's too many great days to play golf, to be out in the rain and cold and elements. But you had to be there, Steve. But tell us about that event, that South Texas PGA. That's pretty cool. That's heart of Texas stuff. And now the winners of that are going to go off and play in Bandon Dunes in Oregon. That sounds amazing.
Well, now what this is just our section pro match play, and they take 32 teams from the Eastern chapter and 32 teams from the Western chapter. Eastern is mostly Houston. And then we battle it out on our side of the bracket, and then the champions of the West bracket will go play the champions of the East bracket. It's a long event. They give you 6 weeks to complete each round, so it doesn't wrap up until October. And what's going on this week? If you look on PGA.com this weekend, you're going to see the Club Professional Championship, which is just golf club industry professionals like myself. We try and qualify during our section championship. We're sending, I think, 13 players from the Southern Texas section out to Bandon Dunes, and the top 10 of that event, they get to go play on in the PGA Championship. So essentially my route to the Masters is I need to qualify through the section, then I need to go play the CPC and finish top 10 there. Then I go to the PGA Championship. I think I have to finish top 10 there. I'm in the Masters. That's my route.
Hey, man, there's always goals. I mentioned on our episode recapping the Masters, which, Steve-O, you didn't get to participate because you were basking in the sun of Cozumel, Mexico. But I will thank my niece, Maya, who sent me this great-looking hat from the merch tent there.
Great.
She did very good. I also got a nice polo that is in the closet that I don't have out, but that's nice. 2026 Masters. She was, as we told you last week in episode 19, she's a student at South Carolina. and part of a marketing class. I guess they do it every year. They get the entire group set up and trained in the fall semester, and then they show up and just roll it out. It's kind of free labor for the folks at Augusta National. But man, some good gear. Way to go, Maya. Awesome job. That's a great looking golf hat for the dude room over there, and for wearing if I need to. But you'll get there, Steve. I know. I believe in. Did you play any golf in Mexico or no? Just lay on the beach.
Nah, my clubs don't leave any counties that don't touch Travis. They don't go anywhere that doesn't touch Travis, which is not entirely true. The Thursday of the Masters, I did have the pleasure of going out and playing the Big Easy out in Columbus. You know where Columbus is? It's out in the middle of nowhere. This place is 15 minutes from Columbus, and it's the Big Easy Ranch, and it is another high-end playground that popped up out in the middle of the country.
Yeah.
And it is fantastic.
Is it?
Absolutely fantastic.
I bet they'll let you ship your sticks to Big Easy Golf Ranch out there, Steve.
I actually drove with them. It's an hour and a half drive, but it's just fantastic golf course. It's inside the pines. I think Billy Brown owns it. The big oil guy out of Louisiana.
Yeah.
It is just a great golf course. You're out in the middle of nowhere, but you are playing a pristine wall-to-wall Zoysia golf course. They have a 12-hole par 3 that they're redoing right now. Apparently they put it in 2 years ago and didn't like it, so they're redoing it. They have a hunting club out there, chucker and quail. And, nice. Small little property donation. You too could be a member out at the Big Easy.
All right.
Yeah. That's great. The Big E, is that the actual name or is that a nickname?
Yeah. It's the Big Easy Ranch. Their main 18-hole course is called the Covey, named after covey of quail, and then they have another 9-hole golf course, and their championship tee markers are gigantic red deer antlers. I mean, they are just huge antlers laying on the ground, and those are their championship tee markers.
Wonderful. The Big Easy, after Ernie Els, I guess, or obviously just the Big Easy golf course in Columbus. That's out there off I-10, but you said 20 minutes from I-10. It sounds like. Yeah, out there, which is pretty great. Hey, Steve, since we didn't get you last week while you were in Mexico, what were your impressions of the Masters? I mean, Rory back-to-back, give up the lead, come back, kind of a Seabiscuit kind of moment, right? To give up that lead and come get it again. Scotty Scheffler close, but kind of like we saw this weekend, not there. Pretty great stuff from Augusta.
I think when Rory is playing his best golf, that I'm not certain that he can choke it away. He last year he tried to give it away and still won. This year, I mean, he played 1 under for the last 72 holes and still wins the golf. Wait, did he play 1 over for the last 72 holes and still wins the golf tournament? To see Scotty come on like he did, I thought that was awesome. Cameron Young had kind of faltered there at the end. Madison had him at 25-1 for $25. She was trying to cash in on that, but it's just a great golf tournament all the way around. I just don't hardly it can be beat at that golf course whenever he plays okay. I mean, the guy is just so good on that golf course whenever he plays okay. And the first 2 rounds he completely lit the place on fire. Was 6 ahead, but 3 holes into Saturday, he's 2 ahead or 3 ahead. But it was a wonderful weekend of golf. I watched it start to finish on Saturday and Sunday, and it turned out about like we thought it would.
Yeah, it was a blast. It really was. I know CBS, their coverage, they had some issues with their cameras and tech, and that got a lot of heat. That's how social media works these days, but not the normal standard. But Charlie, one of the things we talked about, and we'll get into this here coming up on our Hot Golf episode 20, the LIV guys all struggled outside of really Terrell Hatton. Really did not play great, and maybe the news that came subsequent to that, maybe there was some rumblings that there was some distraction going on, because we now know that there was an emergency meeting ahead of LIV Mexico, and maybe those guys were getting word from their agents and some other folks that they had more on their minds than just playing in that golf tournament on two weekends ago.
Yeah, in hindsight, I think that's accurate kind of way to summarize what was going on with the LIV guys. I guess we don't count Patrick Reed a LIV guy anymore. He had decent tournament, not a great weekend, but he played well. He showed. But yes, the rest of those guys, Rahm did not play well. He did make the cut, did not play well over the weekend. And that sounds like that some of the news that was coming out of, LIV or from behind the scenes and quietly coming to them through their agents and whatnot was affecting them. Sergio shows up on the tee box, first tee, and he's visibly angry. We have heard that from, Colonel Flowers, who saw him and said something's not right. And those two guys, Sergio and Rahm, played together, and they didn't play terribly well on Sunday. The Hatton, I guess he's the guy. McIntyre, really crashed and burned on Friday, and so did Bryson. He crashed and burned on the 18th. He had a chance to at least sneak in under the cut line and frittered that away. It was not a stellar showing by those guys, and I think there probably were some things weighing on their minds. And it's interesting that if that indeed was weighing on their minds, why? Other than maybe they haven't been paid this year yet. That would be troubling to me, I suppose, that you're supposed to be getting paid at the end of the month or whatever it is that the timeliness of the being paid. And I guess that would be upsetting because it's kind of back to old times. I got to play for what I'm paying, get paid for what I'm playing for. But if that's not the reason why they're upset, I don't know why, because usually you have to figure out, you have to kind of consider that, okay, the minds will get together on this and something will prevail and something will settle in and we'll get to a better place. But unless, what it sounds like though is, unless LIV Golf can come up with some other funding mechanism for their league, they're gonna have a big time struggle to put a product out there in 2027. Sounds like they're going to get through this year, but 2027 would be pretty iffy if they don't have. And listen, there are other funding mechanisms out there. It just doesn't have to be the Saudi fund that's behind it. It has been, but there are other mechanisms, and there are other people with deep pockets, or you can collect a bunch of people with deep pockets that want to still put a product up against the PGA Tour. And maybe it's still out there. Right here in this market, we have, the richest guy in the world. If he wanted to fund LIV Golf, LIV Golf, he could all by himself. I don't think that would be a very smart move, and probably not what he's in it for. But nonetheless, there are people out there who can do this.
Yeah.
Be that as it may, the way it's set up now won't look like it. It sounds like it's not going to look this way a year from now.
Well, go back to the driving range interview 4 years ago with Phil Mickelson. And he said, look, LIV Golf's here for a little bit, and LIV Golf may exist in 2040, but it's not going to be backed by Saudi dollars in 2040. He said at some point in time, they're going to get bored and they'll go away. And, somebody may take over and may turn it into a Adams Tour, and essentially half the field, that's their caliber of talent, is a Canadian Tour or Adams Tour or something like that. They do have those big names that they paid for, and they shelled out $200 million for Phil, and because they needed a big name and a big splash. The tour itself, we've talked about it. It's not a great product. It doesn't matter if it's sustainable financially or not, because the Saudis have as much money as they want. It's what keeps the Saudis entertained. And if they're not finding entertainment, or if they're not seeing that they're having the impression in the golf industry that they planned on having, then they'll lose interest, take their $5 to $8 billion loss, whatever it is, and they'll go away. The thing that I found interesting is Roll-Up has already said, as CEO of the PGA Tour, he said, our phone lines are open, and we are going to do what's in the best interest of the PGA Tour. That means to me, if Jon Rahm, if Bryson, if those big names, Cam Smith, if they want to make a phone call, swallow their pride a little bit, they're going to find a way to get those guys back out on the tour, just like they did with Brooks, just like they're doing with Patrick Reed. It's just, our phone lines are open, and they're going to do what's in the best interest of the PGA Tour. And having Jon Rahm, having Bryson on the tour that's in the best interest of the tour without a doubt.
Yeah, to your point, Brian Rolap, who is, obviously when this all began, PGA Tour was slow to react and just kind of sloughed it off. And I think to your guys' comments, the one thing about the Saudi fund and other outside investors, they're going to want a profit. They're not going to live in the red the way the billions, especially that the Saudi fund was willing to do while they were bankrolling this thing, because there was no money being made. It was being running out the other side. And I don't think anybody, whether it's Elon Musk or whoever, would want to get involved. And you're not saying that, you're just using that as an example, is going to want to get involved unless there's a profit. And that's going to be a challenge, especially to your point. Rolap's an interesting guy because he comes from the NFL, guys. He was with the NFL league office. He doesn't play much golf, if any. He's just there to help grow the PGA Tour and what's best for the tour. And to your point, Steve, he was on the Pat McAfee show on ESPN this week and said, he was asked about what it looks like. He said, look, they're under contract, so we're not going to mess with that. But at the same time, we're reading all the same headlines you're reading. We don't know what's going on over there. We know that they have guys under contract. But he said Brooks Koepka came back to the tour because he made a phone call and said, look, I'm out of my contract and I want to come back. So we're thinking about all the other guys. We'll react when we have an opportunity to react. But right now we're focused on making the PGA Tour better. I've said publicly, and I'll say again, I'm interested in whatever makes the PGA Tour better. That's my job. That's what I'm interested in doing. That has no limits. That's what I'm focused on, which I think is pretty refreshing, Charlie, from the previous leadership at the PGA Tour, that this guy's like, okay, we'll wait and see what happens over there, but we're not going to play, we'll do it within reason, but we want to make the PGA Tour better. Whatever that is, that's what we're going to do.
But Moynihan was running a 501. Rolap is CEO commissioner. He's expected to turn serious profits. He's running a business. That's the big difference between his position and what Moynihan was running.
And I'll take it back down to the players. And here's what Rolap is going to have to come to terms with. And yes, Steve, you're right that the tour is quite possibly better with Bryson and John Rahm and Patrick Reed and Cam Smith and maybe a couple other players that are in there. But I tell you what, if those guys go to a major like the Masters and don't show like they did, you start to wonder if maybe those guys might not get such a good deal on the second go round of the offer to come back to the PGA Tour. They might not get a Brooks Koepka deal. That might be a harder deal than that. So they got to play their way back onto the tour in some way or another. They got to show it where they are. And Rahm won this weekend in Mexico on the LIV Tour, which is a good showing. But these guys are not just gonna. It's just not going to be super easy for them to come back. I think they don't get the Brooks deal. I think they get.
I don't think they do either.
Something like the Brooks deal, but they don't get the Brooks deal. Oop.
Erin, we can't hear you right now.
Erin, we lost you.
Sorry about that. I muted as I was, chewing on some ice over here. But Steve-O, expand on that. What Moynihan was dealing with is a 501c3, and then now Brian Rolap, how it's different, because Rolap in that same interview with McAfee, and I can try to play it. I don't know how good it's going to sound on my phone through my microphone, but he said, they taught us, their competition with us forced us to get better and forced us as an entity to improve. And he compared it to, the ABA and the NBA. And then, sometimes it needs to challenge us. He's saying the right things publicly because it was so contentious for so long. What's your read on where it was when it began and now where it is, to the point of how these players are going to eventually migrate their way back?
I think whenever the LIV first started, the PGA Tour, they had a very hard stance, and they only thought there was so many $80 million contracts that the PGA Tour was willing to give out, but the LIV Golf was willing to give out, but they gave out a bunch of those 40, 60, and $80 million contracts, and they took some stars from Rahm and Koepka and Bubba Watson and Patrick Reed, and so you start to worry about how much money is it going to take to get Rory? How much money are these guys willing to give away? That's why the tour originally tried to come to an agreement with the PIF. That has not panned out. That thing dropped like a bomb and then went nowhere immediately. I think that the PGA Tour realized that they are not the only game in town, and somebody can buy their talent away. We talked about this in the early episodes. I didn't have the dreams of as a kid of sinking a putt on the 54th hole to win in Mexico City. I had the dreams of holding out on the 17th hole of TPC and continuing down the 18th fairway to a round of huge applause and being watched by millions. That's what the dream is, to play on the PGA Tour. But when you start talking, about 8-figure deals and 9-figure deals in some cases, that's going to move people away from your sport. So they had to react. I thought they did a good job of reacting. I don't know how sustainable it is. I don't know how profitable they've been over the last couple of years, because when it first came out, there was a concern that this is not a sustainable model. But now, with the little bit of profit sharing that they have going on, and the players have, a vested stake. That's one thing that Brooks doesn't have the opportunity to have. He can't play in those annuity games this year that he wants to. And they said, and for 5 years, and they said that could cost him, I believe the number was up to $80 million in long-term gains. So PGA Tour, I'm on their side. They're doing the right thing. LIV Golf, I don't care about. And I'd like to see the stars come back. What stars that are left? Is Bubba a star still? The guy has incredible game. Cam Smith, is he still a star? I don't know. I kind of look at Cam Smith a little bit like a David Duval, where he was good for a couple of years, but I don't see Cam Smith having the sustainability that the big stars have. So we'll see how all this shakes out. It's going to be interesting over the next 6 months. I would bet that in the next 2 months, some serious conversations start happening with Rahm and DeChambeau.
So, Erin and Steve, I would also add to this, the bringing it home a little bit closer is one of the things that the tour effectively did was tightened up its fields, and that's how you control costs. You can maybe have your purses, but you can tighten your fields up and you control your costs a little bit. So just looking at it through that lens, they've made some smart moves so that they can manage this more expensive product that they have. Okay, that's one thing. Another thing, though, is they're also betting that as LIV players age, that many of them will not be tour ready and probably tour testable anymore. Bring that close to home here in the Austin market, and don't really want to see it, but Sergio Garcia, for example, Austinite now, is in that mix of, is he a talent that would be heading back to the regular tour, and what would it take for Sergio to get back to the regular tour, as he's now in his 40s and probably starting to prepare himself for maybe a life on the PGA Champions Tour. Also, what does that mean to those players that maybe are somewhat marketable, playing on a second tier level tour event? Here in Austin, we're going to be having a golf tournament in the fall, in November. Do those players now start to look kind of interesting to an Austin market tournament? And is that how you bring them back in to the PGA Tour fold? Do you create maybe an extra pocket or packet, if you will, of sponsor exemptions that would allow them back in? And I think it makes all for kind of an interesting scenarios and what that might do. We could use some, and here in Austin for the good tournament, we could use some star power. So I wouldn't write off anybody from LIV Tour who might be interested in playing in that tournament. They're probably going to have to do something to get in, and then maybe it's not this year that it occurs, but I think that's where we can build some, kind of star quality and equity in our tournament here in this market, and it becomes an event that's an event that we all appreciate.
Yeah, and Charlie, I think I look at like Sergio, and I look at Sergio and Ricky Fowler kind of along the same lines. Their best days may be behind them, but they bring eyeballs to the television. They're a heavily followed group because, one, they're incredibly talented, but for one reason or another, they're both really enjoyable to watch. You know,
they are.
We've been watching Sergio since he was 20 years old, running up the fairway and skipping. And so, you know, even though their best days are behind them, they still have the ability to draw attention, which attention is dollars.
Well, I think that's interesting. And you'll take it back to the beginning with the performance at the Masters. And was there something exterior happening? You know, Alan Shipnuck, I don't know where he's a reporter and author, and he's been at the tip of the spear on all this stuff. He was on one of the national shows, Rich Eisen or somebody, and said he had heard from an agent that there is a threat from some of these, from the LIV side, that just cancel these contracts, that they're just going to, you know, force of nature, force of God, the war is becoming something they've got to deal with. And so these contracts are just gone to the point of not getting paid. As you guys talked about, vendors have said they're not getting paid. If the players are not getting their checks, and, you know, Shipnuck mentioned, the agent said, you know, it's one of those things, they're incorporated in London and New York, but also their main office is in Saudi Arabia. Come sue me in Saudi Arabia to try to get your money. How do you think that's going to go?
Yeah.
That would lead to some of the stuff maybe we saw at the Masters. These agents are saying, God, you may not get your money, man. I know it's on a contract, but we have to go fight in a Saudi Arabian court to win that cash. That could be problematic.
When you said their contracts are getting canceled, I'm like, who do you sue? And who do you sue whenever the Saudis tell you they're not going to pay you anymore? I don't know where to begin.
Good luck.
Good luck.
Yeah. You probably have better luck getting a tanker out of the Strait of Hormuz than getting that money.
Yeah. And that's Shipnuck was on point with it too. And he said, yeah, they're gonna make you come to Saudi Arabia to fight for that money. And yeah, you have to fight for your legs and your limbs too. Who knows the way on that regime works, right? I mean, not to get too grim, but yeah, you're barking up an interesting tree there. So yeah, that is interesting. And then, so, you know, if the money stops coming, and I know that O'Neill, the CEO of LIV, is trying to sell it, and he's trying to be the best sales guy you've ever seen, and he's selling cars on the car lot right now. Like,
they sold tickets to other events. They got to make sure people continue to show up.
And they've got promises and vendors and sponsors.
Does it exist in 3 months?
Yeah,
I mean,
but I think that's a great question, and I think that's where Roll-App was pretty good this week to saying we're going to wait and see, just like you guys, but we are going to look to make the PGA Tour better. And that's something that I had not thought of, Steve, that's really, and Charlie, hey, y'all come back playing these lesser events. Help us grow those lesser events in the fall and work your way back, pay your dues. But, we're not going to put you on our signature events and those equity events, as you talked about. But, if you want to come back, play some golf, get back to playing 4 rounds and competitive with some of the best young talent out there, come back and play in our October, November events and help us grow those. Yeah, that makes the PGA Tour better.
It'd be a good move.
Yeah. That would be interesting. Yeah, because it may not be around for much longer, which is a great point here on our Hot Golf conversation about the go-go. And all right, come, get your legs under you playing in these events that aren't the big dollar events, which are interesting. Steve, I wanted to ask you on that for our audience that maybe for me, I'm not 100% clear. How does that work as far as, because obviously now the independent contractors are working with the PGA Tour, invested in, the outcomes. I mean, how does that equity side work different than what it used to be?
Well, the players now have an ownership stake in the tour, where it was not a public type deal. It's always been billed, just like the NFL was for the longest time, been billed as a charity. That's kind of how the PGA Tour was billed. It's billed as a charity. Don't get me wrong. And the PGA Tour gives more to charity than the NHL, NFL, and NBA combined have in years past. They definitely do their share, and they try and have an impact on every community that they visit. And they have a significant one. Just ask the folks out at First Tee how important the Dell was to that event out there. So now that they're not part of that, now these players are getting a portion of ownership. They're getting an equity stake, and it may be in the 1/100th of 1%. But when you talk about 1/100th of 1% of $500 million, that's a lot of bread. So that's kind of where they're at now. And that's the way it was billed whenever everybody was really concerned about LIV, when they were saying these players are going to own the team that they're on. great. You're already worth, $10 million. Peter Uihlein, what good does owning 10% of a team that's worth $1 million? What good does that do you? Teams aren't worth anything yet, and haven't been and won't be worth anything. So that's kind of why the PGA Tour had to make some changes, is because some of the things that LIV was saying was really attractive for their long-term future. It is not cheap being a touring professional. And you ask the guys that are 150th on the money list at the end of the year, I'm not thumbing my nose at it, but they're clearing $800,000. They're clearing $1.25 million. And then they're paying tax on top of that after all the expenses that they paid. So $1.25 million is great, but if you're 150th, you're also wondering, how long am I going to be able to play this game? How long am I going to continue to qualify to make this $1.25 million a year? So, having ownership stake helps their financial future, and that's what's important to them.
Makes the grind worth it, even if you're at 150th. That's for sure.
Yeah, and we talked about it again. Pat Perez went to the LIV Tour for $10 million. No brainer for Pat Perez. Once again, he was 46 years old at the time. His best days were behind him. He was fighting every year to keep his card. That's an easy walk. And nobody was sad to see Pat Perez go.
He's now, by the way, Pat Perez was playing in last weekend's Senior PGA Championship.
I still appreciate multiple sides of this whole conversation. Harold Varner left the tour and said, I'll never make that money in my life. That's for my grandkids, and I'm going to go take it. And he was upfront with it. He was like, I'll take it. I'll get my bread in the bank, and then we'll see what happens. I can't pass that up. And you understand that as a person with, families and kids and whatnot, and how competitive golf is. But can we also give credit, Charlie and Steve, to the players that were offered a ton, like Scotty, like even our friend John Fields, who was on the show. Some of his top young golfers were offered a lot of money to join that tour, and they stuck and stayed. And I think what we've seen as LIV has tried to find footing, there's been young stars that have risen into the piece. I mean, Scotty Scheffler wasn't a star in the world golf scene when LIV began. He is now the number one player in the world. Matt Fitzpatrick, we're seeing right now, the hottest player on the planet. Cam Young is emerging, and some of these young guys, we've talked about them from the UT side that are growing into the game. Give them credit, because by all accounts, they were all offered big checks and big opportunities, and they stuck and stayed. To what you said, Steve, they wanted to make the putt on the 72nd hole of a 4-round tournament and play on the PGA Tour, play for history. There's credit there, as this thing, we'll see the history of it, 5 years from now. But there were a lot of guys that could have made a lot of money that didn't. So I don't get mad at the ones that took it, especially in a Harold Varner or Pat Perez situation. But some of those young guys, because you could tell, LIV was trying to bring some of those young guys for an infusion of some of that youth to grow with. And almost all of them said, no, thank you.
I promise you more people will remember Matthew Fitzpatrick winning the Heritage Classic this last weekend than if he'd have gone down to Mexico City and won that tournament on the LIV Tour. I promise you. And that's where these guys a lot of these guys made their choices. It's like, okay, I can take the money now, or I can be competing for something that has mattered, does matter, and will continue to matter. You're right, Aaron. I think it's a good point. The Pearson Cooties, and some of those guys who are bubbling up and moving forward. The Cam Youngs. Right there with Cam Young, if I'm not mistaken. Remember Matthew Wolff when he came out, and he came out on the tour really hot, and he decided to jump over to the LIV Tour, and we've not seen or heard from Matthew Wolff since.
Right.
So it's the gives and takes, and what you want to go forward and live with.
I can tell you somebody who's pissed right now that it didn't come around a little bit earlier. Smiley Kaufman. Smiley Kaufman was a top 60 player in the world 8 years ago. He would have been a perfect LIV candidate, because he was struggling the last couple of years, but he was a good name. He had a great name, great personality, big social media presence, and now he's an on-course commentator. HB3 was a great move for him. It's just a great move. Peter Uihlein. Nobody knows who Peter Uihlein is. He's Wally Uihein's grandson. or son. That's about all we know about him. It's a great move for him. LIV Golf served its purpose for a lot of players. It ruined the reputation of a couple big names.
Yeah, certainly did.
And, we'll see. I mean, the long-term story of Bryson DeChambeau not written. He's still, social media star, and hopefully there's a way to get him back because he is the biggest star they have. And I read, I think it might have been Alan Shipnuck writing, but DeChambeau was up for a new deal and they're trying to rework it, and that maybe led to some of the pull in the plug because he was asking for the moon. He knew how important he was to their cog in their wheel. So interesting times, and I think big picture, we just all hope the game of golf and the professional golf is better. And we've talked here on the Hot Golf Podcast many times about how many young superstars are coming. The talent's never been greater in the pipeline, and that's good that the PGA Tour is going to be the destination, and the DP World Tour, and what we see. And let's pick it up that with what we saw at RBC Heritage last weekend, guys. And Scotty Scheffler again making that charge, and he really wasn't on the leaderboard, and then there he is on Sunday in the back nine, just like he was at Augusta. Matthew Fitzpatrick and he, and if you take out Augusta, Matthew Fitzpatrick was right there in the Players. He won the Tampa event, and now he's won RBC Heritage. He's playing as good as anybody in the world right now.
Yeah, I have to agree with you. He's relevant. He's right there. He's winning. And Scotty Scheffler, for all that Scotty Scheffler is a kind of close but no cigar right now. But you can just see, by the behavior of Scotty Scheffler, I think he's pulling his game together. He's getting his rhythm back after being off the tour for 3 or 4 weeks. And you can just see that his goals are pointing toward the next 2 major championships, the PGA, which is in the Philadelphia area here later in May, and then of course in June, the U.S. Open, which is going to be at Shinnecock Hills. So we're definitely going to see. There was one thing I couldn't help but kind of do a comparison, Aaron, and with respect to the regular tour event, RBC Heritage this week, and comparing it to the Senior PGA. Senior PGA being a major for the senior level and Champions Tour level players, and just how important it is to those guys, but monetarily being a marquee event, how much the Heritage also was. So the Heritage is a $20 million event. The Senior PGA is a $3 million purse. So I did a little comparison here that showed Stuart Sink won the Senior PGA, and he won $540,000 for shooting 19 under. Matthew Fitzpatrick for shooting 18 under on the regular tour won $3.6 million. So again, it's stages of life and stages of relevance and all those kinds of things. But let's kind of move down the list a little bit. I thought these are, and I like to localize these things, as you guys know. So the low club pro was Justin Hicks, club pro, playing in the Senior PGA, and he won $40,000 for finishing at 5 under.
All right.
And so and he finished tied for 17th, and then tied for 27th was Justin Leonard, University of Texas. He made $18,000 for finishing at 3 under. And the next lowest club pro in the club pro kind of category of that group of 35 that got into the Senior PGA, tied at 51 was our own Omar Uresti, who made 59. Now let's just call $6,000 at plus 3. On the tour, Tommy Fleetwood finished 52nd at the RBC Heritage and made $43,500. So I mean, it's apples and oranges, and it might be just it's not even probably considered 2 kinds of the same fruit or anywhere near in that neighborhood. But nonetheless, you can kind of see how the difference is. But all of these guys want to play. They're playing to win. They're playing to make a living, and it's important whether you're bringing home $4,400 on the Senior PGA Championship like Tim Petrovic did, Austinite, or you're Mi Woo Lee or Min Woo Lee, and you're making $36,500 in time for 60th. So it's just it's just kind of an interesting kind of dynamic and a way of comparing where these guys are in the stages of their golf professional life. But nonetheless, it just remains important to them, and they really, they just love the game and they're getting after it.
Well, I can tell you, every figure you threw out to a club professional is a lot of money. From the little ones,
and you take every hole seriously, and you took home a check, right? Steve, that's what you're saying. You took home some money, and
I hadn't cashed many checks, but they sure are nice when you cash them.
Yeah. No question. Yeah. And, I'm going to get you here at the Masters. That's the
goal. I just take Pro Shop merchandise and think it's great.
The Masters. Okay. Other local hot golf conversations going on. The weather is going to turn. It's going to get sunny and all that stuff. The April showers will bring May flowers. Steve-O, what's on the calendar over there at the municipal courses here in the city of Austin, and what's going on?
Well, we just finished up our Lloyd Morrison Spring Partnership out at Lions. This is the 50th year. It's not necessarily the 50th competition, but it is the 50th year. Started in 1976 by Lloyd Morrison, the Golf Professional Lions, for years and years. But one of our guests, Robbie Ormond, and his partner, Alex Ellis, shoot 10 under, 11 under, 21 under, 2-day total to win that event by 4. We had some great we had some great names up near the top. Firecracker champion Charles Neal White, him and his partner Alex Levy, they were 4 off the lead, finishing second. Westlake golf coach Michael Rome and former Westlake player Stephen Schmeeding, they were 7 off, finished third at 15 under. My favorite one, and you can find this on golfatx.org under the tournaments page, tied for 6th, Austin Cotton and his sister, UT's Bentley Cotton. She played at the University of Texas. She flat carried my man around the golf course on Sunday. They shot 8 under with her 6 birdies. Sorry, Austin, didn't mean to throw you out there like that. But Bentley and Austin finished tied for 6th. That's the lowest finish that I can remember a female player having out there. So it was a great event all the way around. We had 72 players, 72 teams in the field. We battled the concern of weather, but never had a weather delay. It was cold, it was windy, it was gross, but overall it was a great event. Congratulations to Robbie and Alex. 21 under is the lowest that anybody knows of, and that is flat golfing your ball. 61-60. I don't care if you're playing scramble. That's pretty good around the Lions Golf Course. Good job to them.
That is smoking. I got a connection to, you were mentioning the Cottons. I played junior golf with their dad, Jimbo Cotton. He was from Round Rock here. So Aaron, I think Jimbo's out at Austin Country Club now.
Aaron, you're on mute again.
I keep doing that. We had Robbie on the show. He's great. And I played golf once at Lions with Mr. Ellis and Alex. He's a smooth lefty, man. That guy's got a great golf swing. What a player. Really, really a good player. And I'll tell you this, I've never played with Alex Ellis off Muni, but you don't want to play him at Lions.
No, you don't. No. Turn around, walk away.
Yeah. That's his track, brother. He is in comfort zone mode at that place. Also, you had a note on Farrah O'Keefe, a previous guest on the Hot Golf Podcast, Charlie, that Texas women's golf, she's playing some good stick as well.
Yeah. So this week was the SEC women's golf tournament. They had the medalist, the individual play that qualifies the teams for match play. So the first part of it was medalist play, and Farrah finished tied for 2nd. In the medalist play as an individual. The Texas women's team, I think, were seeded in, I think, as an 8-team playoff team tournament. They were seeded 5th, and they played the Lady Aggies, and the Aggies beat Texas 3-2, 3 matches to 2. And if you remember Laura Ionella, when she was telling us about her team, she had 3 strong players. Her top 2, Farrah and Cindy Sue, they won their matches, but their third player in that top 3, I think A&M matched up one of their better players against her, and they picked her off, and then A&M picked off the other 2 University of Texas players. So good showing, competitive showing for the Texas women, and of course for Farrah. I'm fairly reasonably concerned. Not concerned, certain that they're going to qualify for the NCAA women's regionals because of their track record this year. The Texas women had such a good season. So we'll see what happens out of that. And next week, I believe the men's SEC championship will be held. So we'll get to see what happens there with those guys. They finished their season pretty strong as well. So regular season. Mm-hmm.
They did. And Charlie, you mentioned the majors that are coming, PGA and then U.S. Open. Are you still with your gut that Scotty's going to win that U.S. Open this year?
Well, I predicted that he would win next year.
You did. That's right.
Because they're Pebble Beach, but he might be ready to win this year, and so to clinch that career Grand Slam. But I would, if everything else is even and he's prepared, he could very well get it this year. But I think Pebble Beach is the one for him next year because he always seems to play well on courses that he's played before. I don't know how much he's played at Shinnecock Hills. I mean, it's part of the rota for the U.S. Men's Open, but not everybody gets to get out there and play Shinnecock very frequently.
Looking forward to it. What a great golf season it's going to be. And I would say, because we talked about on the radio show this morning, happy birthday to Tony Romo, who plays a lot of golf with Scotty. And how about this, Steve-O? He said he's probably played 500 rounds of golf with Scotty Scheffler, and he's never shot above 70. Ever.
Just a world I can't imagine. Just a world I can't imagine.
And that's what Romo was like, what? You never get like off focus and you shoot 71, at some point. Those guys get together and play quite a bit. Jordan Spieth's a part of that. I think when he's healthy, Will Zalatoris is a part of that Dallas area group that Romo plays in. It's his birthday today. Antonio Romo has a birthday today. So 46 and plays a lot of golf with those guys up in Big D. All right, guys, great stuff. A Hot Golf Podcast, episode 20. Tell a friend, share it with a friend. Good to have Steve back and looking tan and ready and good from Mexico. Anything coming big in the city side there, Steve? Anything to be looking for? You just wrapped up the Lions event. What's on the calendar coming?
Firecracker qualifying just opened up. That's on our website as well under the tournament section, golfatx.org. Firecracker Qualifier 1 is full. It opened up yesterday at 8 a.m. or 7 a.m., whatever time it opened up. Firecracker Qualifier 1 is full. So Qualifier 2 still has some spots available. You better get on there and get registered if you want to try and qualify for Austin's premier major, without a doubt. The city championship is great, but you will not find 100 players more talented anywhere around than the Firecracker Open. It is bananas, and it takes 75, 76 to even qualify for it. And to make the cut for 2 rounds, you better.
Uh-oh, we had hiccup right there.
Frozen, Steve-O.
Right, we'll get over to the website.
I bet he's saying you better shoot probably 71 or lower if you're going to make the cut.
Better Alec Ellis in that crew, man, there. All right, Charlie, get your plants in the ground, too, over at Callahan's, right? I mean, this rain is beautiful for us. Soft ground, soft soil. Get that done. Get over to Callahan's with a great hat. Congrats to Omar Uresti. You mentioned that. His performance at the PGA Senior Major. Pretty good stuff. That is another episode of the Hot Golf Podcast, episode 20. We'll do 21 next week with the latest from Austin, Texas, the 512 and beyond, of course. And you'll find it at our website, 1027ESPN.com, and at our YouTube page for 1027 ESPN Austin. I'll be on the air tomorrow morning or the morning after you hear this episode, every morning from 6 to 11. And Charlie, you'll actually join me on a Wednesday morning tomorrow. Charlie joins me live each morning, each Wednesday from 9 to about 9:30. So appreciate it. Thank you to Steve. He just sent a text that he just probably lost his power or something there in his house. But fun stuff today. Awesome. Good to have Steve back. Thank you, Charlie.
Yep. Enjoyed it, guys. Break your bunkers, fix your divots. Have fun playing golf. Take care.